So g'day, Scott Poynton here, and I have the pleasure today to welcome Nigel Majakari from the company Kalia, who is a founding member of the Pond Foundation's My Carbon Zero program. Welcome, Nigel. How are you?
Thank you, Scott. Great to be here.
You're here in Zhanjiang and in the home of the Pond Foundation. You've come down from Sweden, where you live, just to share the Kalia philosophy and the values and the journey that you guys are on as a business, but also with your My Carbon Zero journey.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We've been talking through lockdown via Zoom calls and so forth, but there's nothing that can replace just being together in the same space, same room, and just that dynamic that we can create. So really looking forward to be here and talking more.
Yeah, so maybe just tell us a little bit about Kalia and tell us about yourself, Nigel.
Yeah, so
a bit of your story.
Yeah. Basically, Kalia is a business that I founded in 2019 to create design and art objects by bringing together award-winning designers and traditional artisan and craftspeople. And that was a result of a sort of a long journey, personal journey, professional journey, working in, way back in the 90s in a inner city community in London, working with teenage gangs and young men involved in various criminal activities, and I was working there with my wife Christina to try to bring about sort of positive change and try to help. We started micro enterprise businesses, and we had education programs, and we had a non-alcoholic bar with an open mic, rap and hip hop music, but it was to create a safe space for young people to come without the challenges and worries of being involved in violence and crime. But creating a space was the real sort of safe space. And then out of that safe space, together we created all kinds of interesting projects, and some people were really helped by that. Others, it didn't really take root. But my journey really and my passion is to work with grassroots communities. And Kalia, many years later, is working in India, in Nepal, and also in Bosnia with artisans and traditional craftspeople. And my sort of journey spans from working at the beginning with grassroots organizations and working internationally from Bolivia to the Philippines and Afghanistan, but a lot in India, and it's been quite a journey. And for many of those years, sort of being based here in Geneva and not too far from Zhanjiang.
You mentioned the artisans, and so my understanding is from what you're doing there at Kalia, you're really trying to link in this traditional artisanal way of making beautiful products, but bringing contemporary design to that production process, but in a way that supports the artisans. You're not going in there to gouge profits and bring products to a European marketplace, ignoring the conditions and the life of the people out there that you serve.
The community of hand carving stone masons has been there for several thousand years, and today we are working with a family who've been in this craft for over 30 years, and as principally a father, as two sons, and then a group of hand carvers, and they practice their craft, creating objects and work mainly for Indian temple-related activities. And there's across the world in Europe and in many countries, big manufacturing, industrial process, technologies has created many benefits, but also it's wiped out in many places traditional handcrafts. And when we talk about stone and wood craft, those two crafts particularly are the oldest crafts known to humanity. And without much sort of forethought, we embrace technology, but there's a real danger that we really marginalize and bring to a place of extinction these essential human skills and crafts and a community expressions of, and so I wanted to, was inspired by the craft and the stories of the people and the traditions, but of course the expressions, the cultural local expressions in that one place doesn't necessarily translate so well in another. So what we've done with Callier is to bring award-winning designers to sit side by side on an equal basis with the craftspeople and the artisans and create a design journey together. And that's really the essence of what we're doing. And it's about the people and the stories and the craft, and that people with different views, different experiences of life, different outlooks of life, different income levels, they come together around this objective to create a beautiful piece of furniture. And it's an example of sort of harmony in diversity. We don't have to be the same to create beautiful things. In fact, our differences is what creates the beauty.
It magnifies the beauty.
And that's really essentially what Callier is about. It's about bringing people from different cultures together to create exceptional furniture and objects that will last a generation or more.
Yeah, and similar in Nepal, mate. You've got a group of weavers with the traditions way back in Tibet, right?
Yes,
doing amazing things in Nepal.
Yeah, just this last week, we were just launching a collection called Versus, and by wonderful Danish designer Margareta Odegaard, who's a textile and colour designer, and with a group of collective of hand weavers from Nepal, and particularly just on the outskirts of Kathmandu. But their family histories, many of the weavers there that work together, many of them have family histories that reach back to Tibet. And when I went there the first time to look and meet a whole group, this one group collective really stood out because one of the weavers, through a translator, told me the story of how her parents left Tibet and walked over the Himalayas
in the 1960s.
In the early 60s.
Yeah.
And they brought this specific Tibetan knot weaving technique with them. And out of that group of migrants at the time, a whole small industry has been created and has become a important source of foreign income for the country. And I thought that was a beautiful story. And they're well integrated, they're Nepali, but they have these family histories and stories that all sort of move towards the creation of these wonderful tapestries that we're making.
There. Yeah. And so look, you're connecting with these communities. You started, as you say, in 2019. Probably could have picked a better time to launch a business, mate, do you think? Or
it was perfect time.
It was perfect time?
Yeah. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Exactly. The COVID has thrown up some challenges for you and what you're trying to do. But as you say, you're probably a little bit delayed, but you're not stopped. You're still going. Where's the business now?
Yeah, we are just come to the market, and with this collection of tapestries, and we're reaching out to galleries and sort of design-led retailers mainly in Europe at the moment. But we're also launched our products direct that can be found on our website, callier.com. And it's our first step into the market. I spent 3 years before starting Callier working with groups of artisans and craftspeople particularly in India. And it was clear that if we were to really help them and help ourselves, I needed to spend more time on the sort of marketing side. So we came back to Europe, and our company's based in Copenhagen. But we had at the beginning, and it's going to be a journey, and we've got to get the message out, and people follow us on our Instagram account, and this is a way that people can interact with the story and the people and the beautiful products that our craftspeople and designers have created.
Yeah. So you're bringing the product to market. Now, we talked earlier before we started chatting here, you've got some people taking your products to various retailers, and what's very important to you is the story that sits behind the products, your relationship with the artisans, and that history, that tradition. You mentioned that, the retailers they're not getting it, and yet you feel absolutely intimately that this is the future, that the people that are going to buy your products are going to want that connection. So in some ways, I certainly feel you're a pioneer in this. I mean, obviously there's people who have bought products from India and places like this before and tried to make this connection, but you're really trying to bring individual stories of artisanal families to the people who eventually buy that product, the tapestry or the stone piece, or in the furniture piece that's going to be in their house, and they're going to have that connection. Just tell me a little bit more about your.
Yes, I mean, any object that we have around us is in some way, it might have a function. If it's art piece, more obviously, it's an expression of a deeper issue or an idea or an objective to create something functional. And so, for example, with our Tranquil chair, which is a solid wood, handcrafted chair, the wood species that we use are certified oak and ash and walnut. But in the development of that chair, what we did, we brought in one of Denmark's most gifted female cabinet makers. And there are not many in Denmark, and there are a lot less in many other countries. We brought Anna Sophie to India to work alongside cabinet making counterparts who were all male in India. And this was the formative stage of developing prototypes. And we prepared both Anna Sophie and also our local partners
to receive each other.
To receive each other, because for them, they told us, no, that this is not our tradition. For thousands of years, they've never had or seen a skilled woman work with them. And it's just outside of just like many things are outside of our comprehension in different ways. And it's only through education and time that we start to become aware. But we brought them together for 10 days. And amazing things, sort of this interaction between Anna Sophie, she's got tattoos on her arms, working, and she's showing, she's listening, she's learning, and they're working together at the same workbench. The sawdust is coming off the planing machines on her and on Ganeshan, who was the principal counterpart. And I'm watching this unfold, and there was communication issues. Obviously, and sign language became the sort of norm. But I stood back watching this happen, and frankly, it was quite emotional because this was a long time in the making. And but every one of my Indian partners, they said, and the research we'd done, they all said, as far as they are aware, in the history of carpentry in India, they would never have seen this happen before.
Amazing.
Now, we're not changing India. Our objective is not to thrust our ideals on them. They have to percolate, and people have to own new ways and for things to really stick and grow. But it was the beginning, and this is one of the wonderful things in meeting you and becoming why I wanted to become part of the Pond Foundation and My Carbon Zero, is because it's this ripple effect. Yeah. It was one 10-day moment in the lives of a group of people in that corner of India, and this connection between Denmark and India. but the stories that they all will tell to their children, to their families, to their colleagues about what happened there the very first time this female carpenter worked at the same bench as a male Indian carpenter.
Extraordinary.
We do not know what that will
No.
affect over time.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got our plans and things, but this human story coming together. So when you have that chair around your dining table, or in a cafe, or in your office area, front office area with your clients coming, there is built in that DNA this story of Anna Sophie and Ganeshan coming together.
Amazing.
And to me, that's a kind of beautiful way. We can hang beautiful artwork on our walls, but this is something functional too. Yeah. And to bring that together, sort of art and function in the kind of Collier's design philosophy is really, really what keeps me up at night.
Well, I guess it gets you out of bed in the morning, right? Gets you out of bed in the morning, Nigel. And I mean, what an amazing story. And for Anne-Sophie to bring that experience back to her work in Denmark, I can't imagine how that's enriched her, right? So beautiful two-way relationship of two people who in normal circumstances would never meet, and yet here they are, as you say, planing a piece of wood, touching something natural from the earth. Great story, and that's embedded in your products. You mentioned My Carbon Zero and the Pond Foundation. So tell me about your approach to that, mate. We spoke Nigel and I had a chat before we got on the camera, and we just had this. We hadn't seen each other for years, and we talked on Zoom, but we just had this lovely chat this morning, and you talked about your own ripple. What you wanted to do with Collier, and how you wanted to take that from your personal place out to the people you're working with, and then beyond that to the people who are selling your product, and most importantly the people who buy your product and have it in your house. So just talk us through your vision and your idea for how your own journey with the Pond Foundation, My Carbon Zero, the ripple that is your aspirations for the ripple that you want to create.
I think there are two ways that I've been thinking about this and sort of proceeded along and sort of my own journey. One is as a founder, as a leader, as a father, as a husband, is the values that I have to try to nurture and cultivate are things that should have a positive impact on others and people around. And before I can lead or sort of enable others, there's some personal responsibilities that I have to deal with. And over a period of time, been interacting with natural materials and wood, and traveling in different countries, enabling communities, and over the years, you realize that actually, it's not about what I say so much; it's about actually how I live. That is kind of of greater importance, and the other things might follow that. So, but there was a moment. It may have been a couple of years ago that one of the Netflix documentaries, we were talking about it earlier, Cowspiracy,
yeah.
And that sort of helped to bring together a lot of things that I was been thinking. And Christina, my wife, is from Sweden, and so she brings a sort of natural and from a farming family, crops, and she. So she brought into my life, enriched my life with a whole different positive way of appreciating nature and just things that were so natural, they to her, and her upbringing of minimal waste, of shopping products that were in season, and just a general much healthier perspective of environment and sort of rhythms of life and living. And so over the years, she's been my teacher in that respect, and begrudgingly I had to adopt some new ways, and other ways have just flowed much better. But that documentary, and we watched it together, and it just had this sort of light bulb. Well, it wasn't such a light bulb that the ideas were there. It was more a call to action.
Yeah,
that maybe there's something more deliberate it could be. And then, so we looked at how we were eating meat and different things. So we sort of slowly cut that down, and to kind of making sure we weren't eating more than once a week. And sometimes we wouldn't eat meat at all during the week. It depends. But it was just a more conscious, deliberate, sort of thoughtful approach. And then, of course, we were working with partners in sort of rural settings, and over the years, I built a network of 8,000 artisans, and we surveyed them all. We visited them all, and a team and I. And one of the questions was about the use of materials and where does your wood come from, and energy and so forth. And there's these issues were just not on the radar.
No, they'd never been asked before.
Never been asked the question. There's no education around it, and it's perhaps where we were, and where I grew up in the north of England, 60 years ago. I mean, we're responsible for much of what the disaster in terms of the Industrial Revolution and what followed. But but it was completely new, and so I was thinking, well, there's one thing trying to educate others, but I really got to organize myself better. And so when we started Kalia, it was okay. We really have to have a thoughtful, deliberate, planned journey that we can move along. And then I saw your LinkedIn, and when you launched the pond, so I have sort of been looking from a kind of distance a little bit and following what's been happening. And then it was just kind of, okay, I got to do something. And so I reached out to you, and that's just the beginning. I mean, sometimes these things feel like, okay, I'm protesting, therefore I am.
Yeah.
But that's just one part.
It's a step, yeah.
It's a step, but actually it's solutions and practical things that make a difference. And I need help to do that, both at a private level, personal level, because I don't know how this stuff works.
Yeah.
And at a company level, we're dealing with a lot of moving parts. And I know you from your background with previously, and the expertise and incredible experience you've got with these issues. So if I'm going to trust someone to help shape my life and my company, Scott is someone who I'm got to listen to.
Well, I appreciate that, mate. And we're on the journey. And you've become a founding member of the Pond Foundation, My Carbon Zero, which is it's very special to me. It's very special to me that you would do that, because there's a lot of people, I think, like you out there who, like you in one way, there's a lot of people, I was just saying earlier, there's a survey, there's a lot of small, medium-sized enterprises in the world, and I think it's 52% of the economic activity in the UK is generated by small, medium-sized companies. And one of the banks there, NatWest Bank, did a survey of them earlier this year or late last year, and 88% of them said, we want to do more on climate change, on sustainability issues, but we don't know how. We're lost. Someone tells us we should do this. Someone tells us we should do that. Someone tells us this. Someone tells us that. And we're spinning around in circles. And most of them don't have the money to employ, for example, a sustainability manager, let alone a team. They don't have any money to bring in expensive consultants to guide them. And yet they want to do something. And of course, together they comprise a big, not just economic activity, but a big social and environmental footprint. And it seems to me that these are the companies that we could reach out to and help. Of course, if a big company wants to come along and get some support and guidance, great. But it seems to me that the sort of companies that like Kalia, who want to do something but just need that guidance. And so, the Pond Foundation is really to set up for everyone, for individuals, but also for businesses. But I think really to support people like you who not only I think there's a lot of people out there who want to do something, but there's not many people who are taking that step to actually do something. And part of that is just giving them the confidence that it's going to be okay. Because, I know what it's like to set up a business, and it's pretty nerve-wracking. So you also, we were talking about the artisans and the family. Someone comes along with a new idea, and you've been doing you've been earning your living and your money this way for the last 30 years, and someone asks you to do something different, when you know that traditional way puts food on the table tonight, it's a big thing to move away. So trust and relationship, I think, is at the core of what you're doing with the artisans to try and inspire them. And as you say, bring Anne Sophie out and actually let them talk to each other, to realise that there's opportunities here that we can unpick. And I think it's the same sort of philosophy that we're trying to bring with the work at the Pond Foundation. Trust and relationship is at the core. Can we work together? Are you ready to take those steps? And it's very clear you are. But let's travel this journey together, because guess what? We're going to learn too. We're going to learn a lot along the way. So, but at the end of the day, we know that in 1, 2, 5, 10 years' time, we'll look back on where we are today, and there'll be a long journey travelled, and we'll be able to say, look at all the impacts that this relationship has created. So, I'm excited by what we can do together.
You mentioned about the importance of relationship, and I think my sort of own reflections and feeling about the whole climate crisis is, in fact, there's a lot of scientific data, there's a lot of noise out there and different voices, and it's hard to find your own sort of place in that, and what can I do? It feels so overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I started to think about, well, actually, is it a climate crisis that we've got, or is it a relationship problem? And then what I concluded was, actually it begins with my relationship with nature. Mm-hmm. And maybe I didn't have one, or I didn't know I had a relationship with nature. Right. And so one of the things I started to do this last 2 years is swim. We are blessed by being able to live very close to the Öresund and the sea that separates Sweden from Denmark. And so I started swimming, and it's a little crazy because water gets cold quite a bit. But what it does, and people say, "Oh, you're training for triathlon and things like this," and I said, "No, the idea of being competitive out there is not my objective." No. And so I swim, I do my times and things, but I always stop and float, and just try to be in there. And last weekend, it was pretty choppy. And of course, the train, you have the gear. I like the gear. I like all the gear. And making sure
you got to look the part.
You got to look the part too. And but just being out there, and this sense of gives you a sense of perspective. That the Öresund is a certain geographical space, but the water covers the earth and the sky. And it helped me to kind of appreciate my place. Yeah. And every time I weekly swims at the weekend, and whatever the weather, pretty much all through the year, it just anchors me into this place of, I have a relationship with nature. And that relationship over my lifespan has been broken. For different reasons, ignorance or sort of deliberate.
Busy doing other things.
Busy doing different things, and all these things. But then I thought, okay, well, if I can start to work on my relationship with nature, and then make sort of steps with that, perhaps, and take personal responsibility, maybe that's all I can do. I can't go and change the world. I mean, I can shout, I can do podcasts, I can do all this stuff, but if that basic me and nature that relationship isn't started to be healed in some way, then I don't, perhaps all the other stuff doesn't really matter. Yeah. And so I started to sort of frame my view and understanding of the sort of climate, and there is a climate crisis, of course, but then it also feeds into my relationships with others who also have a relationship with nature. And this is where our partnerships with the artisans come in, because we've got a sort of head start in many ways because we've got a broken relationship. We're now, through education and the media, aware of what's happened. Yes. But my friends and my partners in rural Mamallapuram in South India don't have access to all that knowledge. And so my relationship with them is really important. because I can be the conduit. I can be a bearer of news, but not in a preachy way, but just as, look, I'm broken. I've broken this too. I'm trying to repair it. Maybe we can do this together.
Yeah.
And that's really what, with all the corporate and organizational things that we need to have in place, at the heart of it, what's driving my sort of passion for our relationship and with my partners is this basic human sense of, we got to repair that relationship.
Yeah.
And if I can help it with myself, maybe I can help others too.
You're speaking my language, mate, and I think it's spot on. I mean, when we worked with TFT, the board asked me to do a business plan, and I said, I'm not doing that. And I made a drawing, and the motto at the bottom was to protect what we still have and to heal what's been damaged. And it's very much my experience. And people who visit our Instagram and the Instagram feed for A Different Way, which is my other venture, the little company that I'm doing, and also the Pond Foundation, is this connection with nature, individual connection with nature is where it's got to start. Because if you don't love and value nature, you'll make decisions that don't protect her and the earth and the people who live on it, because we're all nature too, right? And I think people have this sense that, well, there's nature outside and I'm different. I'm somehow separate from that. It's like, no, you are nature. I've seen some of the photos that you post on Instagram, these beautiful, just ocean, this huge, beautiful waves and things. I'm like, and I have the same feeling when I go into a forest.
Yeah.
And you have that great sense of connection. And from that, you can say, well, I need to make wise decisions that protect this place because it heals me. When I come out of the forest, and I'm sure when you come out of the water after you swim, I mean, you're in a different place. Yeah. And the other thing that's the essence of my experience over many years working with TFT was that if we can help others get into that place, then they start making wiser decisions. And if they happen to be the CEO of the world's largest palm oil company, they'll make decisions, for example, that don't have human rights abuses associated with them or that don't cause deforestation. And that's what I saw happen. This is the essence of my experience, is find that connection to yourself, and nature helps with that. Then you have a better connection with others, and then you have a greater connection to the planet. And all of the decisions you start taking have that resonance. There's no dissonance, because what's good for you is good for others, is good for nature. And it opens up the possibility of these beautiful relationships. We can talk in a different way. Instead of like, what's tell me the price point of your furniture. It's tell me the story.
No.
Tell me the story behind your furniture. And you know what? Because of that story, I won't mind paying a little bit extra for that furniture, because I understand that that's going out to those artisans out there and that it's creating a better life for them. So I feel a great connection with an alignment, mate, a real connection with what you're doing, and which is, why we were thrilled to welcome you into what we're doing at the Pond Foundation. And we really look forward to sharing your story as Kalia comes into the world, as you're doing now. COVID slowed you down a little bit, but this feels like an irresistible force. What you're bringing to the world is not just a stone or a tapestry product or a furniture product. It's a philosophy. It's a philosophy of care and relationship. And I so believe that people in the future, even today, they look for that. They want that. And, I know some of the retailers are like, oh, no, we've just got this space. You can put your product there. What's the price point? Make sure it doesn't break when people sit on it. So it's got to be technically okay. But I think more and more people are coming into those stores. And as you said, people didn't go out looking for an iPhone, right, or an iPod, but it was created. And as soon as it was created, there was connection to it. And my sense is that the stories behind the products and services we buy are becoming so much more important to the people who buy them, because they're looking out the window and saying, the weather really isn't right. We are looking on the news and seeing people in poverty and in starvation, and we're realising that that's not right either. So I think you bring a philosophy that it's early, but it's coming, and it's coming quickly. So we're going to look forward to having future discussions and learning more about the Kalia journey and your personal journey. So thanks so much, mate, for talking to us today.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful to have you here in beautiful, with sunny Zhanjiang today. And let's talk again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Nigel.
Yep. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, everyone.